Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are embarking on a cinematic, incredibly deep journey into the mind of a global icon. We are going to decode the intense, relentless, and frankly terrifying psychology of Cristiano Ronaldo, exactly as it's broken down in our source material. We look at superstars, right? We see the lights, the cameras, the trophies, the billions of dollars, and we automatically assume their success is just a product of incredible, God-given natural talent, or maybe just sheer luck. We tell ourselves, well, they were just born differently. It lets us off the hook. But when you actually dive into the source material analyzing Ronaldo's career, a completely different, almost unsettling picture emerges. This isn't some fairy tale about a man who just loves to play football and happened to get rich doing it. Not at all. This is an exploration of a psychological engine built on deep trauma, absolute obsession, and a flat-out, uncompromising refusal to be average. By the end of this explainer, you are going to see exactly why greatness isn't an accident. It is a choice. A painful, agonizing choice that is made every single day. So let's dive into it.
Think about your morning today. Think about the average morning for almost every human being on the planet. The alarm clock goes off, and what is the very first thing we do? We negotiate. We hit snooze. We bargain with ourselves for just 5 more minutes of warmth, 5 more minutes of comfort under those heavy blankets. We convince ourselves that we worked hard yesterday, so today is a day we can take it just a little bit easy. We crave comfort. It's human nature. But contrast that everyday desire for comfort with Ronaldo's reality. Over the last 15 years, while the rest of the world is hitting snooze, Ronaldo has been waking up from his 5th precise 90-minute sleep cycle of the day. He has maintained a staggering, almost impossible 7% body fat for 2 solid decades. Do you know how much daily sacrifice that takes? When you realize he's scored over 850 goals across more than 1,200 professional matches, you start to understand something fundamental. That is not luck. It is a deliberate, relentless, daily rejection of human comfort. It is proof that you cannot live a comfortable life and expect to achieve an extraordinary reality.
The media, the fans, society as a whole, we love the word talent. We love calling achievements a miracle, because if someone is just born with it, it means we don't have to compete with them. But as the analysis points out, that is a complete illusion. Ronaldo was never the most naturally talented player on the pitch. Think about his peers for a second. Think about Lionel Messi. Messi possessed this innate, almost magical gift from birth. The ball just stuck to his feet. Think about Ronaldinho, who turned the game into pure, joyful art. They had magic. But Ronaldo? He didn't rely on magic. He built his entire empire on a foundation of pure obsession. He recognized early on that while other players seek rest the moment they feel physical or mental pain, he could make enduring that exact pain his greatest asset. Where others stopped, he started. He literally manufactured his talent through sheer brute force repetition. He made hard work his talent. And that should be a massive wake-up call for anyone watching this explainer who thinks they aren't talented enough to achieve their dreams.
To truly understand the depth of this obsession, we don't even need to look at what he does on the pitch. We need to look at what happens when the stadium is empty and the cameras are completely off. Let's look at a warning from Manchester United legend Patrice Evra. Evra once gave this famous and highly serious piece of advice to anyone who would listen. Never go to his house for lunch. Now, you hear that and you think, wait, why not? He's a multimillionaire, right? He probably has private chefs, caviar, the most relaxing, glamorous setup imaginable. But Evra learned the hard, agonizing way that hanging out with Ronaldo off the pitch is the exact opposite of relaxing. It is a grim, exhausting reality check.
Here's exactly what went down when Evra accepted that invitation after an already brutal, exhausting morning training session. Evra arrived at Ronaldo's house expecting a feast, a chance to put his feet up and recover. Instead, he sat down at the table and was served a stark, almost depressing menu. Dry, unseasoned boiled chicken, plain water, and a small, plain salad. No juice, no carbs, absolutely no dessert. And here's the craziest part. Before Evra could even finish choking down his dry chicken, Ronaldo stood up, pushed his plate aside, grabbed a football, and started doing 2-touch practice routines right there, forcing an exhausted Evra to stand up and join in. But it didn't end there. Next, he dragged Evra out to the swimming pool for high-resistance swimming, and then immediately into the hot tub for more physical recovery drills. For the average person, for you and me, food is an experience. It's enjoyment. It's dopamine. But for Ronaldo, food, time, and relationships are all viewed through one single ruthless lens: fuel for the machine. He is not a slave to his taste buds. He is a slave to his own impossible standards.
This brings us to a really profound psychological shift highlighted in the source material. We call it the identity gap. You see, ordinary people take actions because they are trying to become something. You go to the gym because you are trying to get fit. You read a book because you are trying to get smart. But Ronaldo's psychology is completely inverted. He has never acted like he was trying to be great. From day one, he has acted as if greatness is his heavy, absolute, non-negotiable responsibility. It's his identity. Even before he won a single major trophy, his posture, his internal self-talk, and his psychotic level of discipline were already that of a world champion. He bridged the gap in his mind before it ever happened in reality. When your core identity is excellence, relaxing like an average person doesn't feel like a break. It feels like a failure. It feels like a violation of who you are. He doesn't do these things to become Cristiano Ronaldo. He does them because he already is Cristiano Ronaldo.
But where does a human being get this kind of relentless, almost robotic drive? To truly understand that, we have to look past the shiny trophies, the private jets, and the endless glamour. We have to strip all of that away and go back in time, to his childhood on the small island of Madeira. This wasn't a beautiful, easy beginning. This wasn't a story of a kid with supportive parents ferrying him to expensive soccer camps. It was a life defined by deep, structural trauma and a desperate, clawing need to escape the poverty trap. This is where the machine was actually built. In the dark. Let's paint the visceral reality of that childhood. He lived in a tiny, cramped house with nothing but a tin roof over his head, listening to the rain pound down, fully aware of his family's precarious situation. His father returned from a brutal war completely broken by PTSD, struggling with unemployment and turning to severe alcoholism just to cope with the trauma. The man who was supposed to be his rock was crumbling before his eyes. Meanwhile, his mother was practically working herself to death, holding down 2 exhaustive jobs, day and night, just to keep her 4 children alive. The poverty was so severe, so biting, that a young Ronaldo and his teammates would go to the back door of the local McDonald's late at night, knocking on the door, literally begging the women working there for any leftover burgers to cure their gnawing hunger. Think about what that does to a child's brain. This extreme visceral pain, the constant hunger, and watching his father's tragic loss of control, it forged a profound, permanent fear of helplessness deep inside him. It wired his brain for survival. So what do you do when you have absolutely nothing? When you don't even have the money to buy the most basic football gear? You improvise. You adapt. Young Ronaldo would go out into the alleys, gather empty plastic bottles, wrap them tightly in old socks and plastic grocery bags, and create his own makeshift uneven ball. Without a fancy coach, without turf, without proper facilities, he would head out into the rocky, unpaved, dangerous streets of his neighborhood. He practiced alone, late into the night, dribbling that wildly unpredictable plastic ball over rough terrain where one wrong step meant a scraped knee or a bloody toe. But here is the beauty in the struggle. Those harsh, unforgiving conditions are exactly what hardwired his incredible, world-shocking balance and footwork. He didn't need the perfect conditions to become great. He used the worst conditions to forge something unbreakable. And then came the true turning point. It didn't happen on a football pitch. It happened at home, watching his father. Seeing the man he loved and looked up to lose complete and utter control of his life to alcohol was a psychological earthquake for a young Ronaldo. It terrified him. It was in that dark, helpless environment that he made a pivotal, life-altering vow. He told himself that he might lose everything else in this world. He might lose his money, his status, his fame, but he would never, ever lose control of his own mind and body. He decided right then and there that he would much rather endure agonizing, intense physical suffering through training every single day of his life than ever return to that state of utter psychological helplessness. The pain of discipline became his armor against the pain of poverty.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this explainer's analysis is how that raw, emotional, psychological trauma physically manifested into his execution as an adult. Ronaldo didn't just become a good athlete. He essentially turned himself from a traumatized kid into a literal walking biological experiment. He realized that to stay ahead of everyone else, to ensure he never fell behind and slipped back into the abyss, he had to push the absolute boundaries of human science. He doesn't just train hard anymore. He actively hacks his own biology to reverse his biological age. He treats his body like a multi-billion-dollar piece of technology.
I want you to look closely at this number on the screen. -160 degrees Celsius. This isn't a typo. This is the extreme freezing temperature of his personal at-home cryotherapy chamber. Now let's put this into perspective. Most human beings would enter full-blown panic mode in this kind of freezing environment. Your skin screams in pain. Your blood literally starts to pool rapidly to your core organs just to keep you alive, and you shake uncontrollably. It is biological torture. But Ronaldo? He steps in there willingly, calmly. He embraces the agonizing freeze on a regular basis, just to force his muscles to recover a few hours faster than a normal human being. He buys himself tiny fractions of time through immense physical discomfort.
And his dedication doesn't magically turn off when the sun goes down. Most of us cherish our sleep. We want our solid 8 hours. But Ronaldo completely threw out the traditional human concept of a good night's rest. He follows a strict, highly regimented polyphasic sleep cycle. He sleeps in precise 90-minute intervals. He repeats this cycle 5 times throughout the day and night. Imagine the extreme discipline it takes to constantly interrupt your deep sleep, to never just drift off for a whole night simply because your scientific metrics tell you that this bizarre routine provides the absolute fastest possible physical recovery. It's highly unconventional, it sounds exhausting, but it perfectly illustrates the bizarre extreme lengths he will go to in order to maintain absolute dictatorial control over his biology.
Which brings us to the stunning results of all this biological hacking. A thorough biomechanical analysis conducted by Nike revealed a stat that should drop your jaw. Ronaldo possesses a vertical jump of 78 centimeters. For context, that is significantly higher than the average NBA basketball player. A soccer player out-jumping professional basketball players. And here is the most shocking part of the analysis. Sporting CP, his boyhood club, has records showing that at 16 years old, his jump was completely, thoroughly average. He wasn't born with springs in his legs. He literally fought the laws of gravity. He built this superhuman ability inch by agonizing inch, year after year, through thousands of repetitive, obsessive plyometric sessions when nobody was watching. He refused to accept his biological limits.
So, what happens when you take this dark psychological engine, this incredibly fine-tuned biological machine, and you drop it onto the biggest stage in the world? Let's build the suspense here. Picture it in your mind. It's the 97th minute of a Champions League final. The score is tied. Millions upon millions of people around the globe are watching your every breath. The stadium noise is absolutely deafening. In this massive pressure cooker, the average human brain completely short-circuits. It enters fight or flight survival mode. Cortisol floods the system. Your heart rate spikes wildly. Sweat pours down your face. Your vision narrows, and sheer panic sets in. The body wants to run away.
But this is exactly where Ronaldo becomes living, breathing proof of high-performance science. You know that iconic wide-stanced pose he takes right before he hits a critical free kick, the one everyone mimics? That isn't just a brand logo or showing off for the cameras. According to the breakdown, it is a highly calculated neurological hack. As he stands there, he takes deep, slow, intentional breaths. What he is actively doing is forcing his parasympathetic nervous system to engage. This biological trigger instantly drops his wildly racing heart rate. It slows his breathing. So while the rest of the world, the opposing team, and the fans are collectively holding their breath in absolute panic, he is successfully manufacturing complete and terrifying calm inside his own mind. He slows time down.
He can execute this incredible mental shift because of a core truth perfectly captured in this powerful quote. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your practice. Let that sink in. When the pressure is immense and the world is on your shoulders, Ronaldo doesn't have to cross his fingers and hope for a sudden miracle. He doesn't rely on luck. He simply falls backward into the safety net of the thousands upon thousands of hours of boring, repetitive, obsessive, painful drills he has executed in empty, silent stadiums. His body knows exactly what to do because it's done it a million times. His execution has become completely automatic. Because even on his absolute worst, most exhausted day, his baseline level of practice is still higher than most players' absolute once-in-a-lifetime peak.
And observing this brilliance leads us to the grand conclusion of the source materials analysis, the core thesis that explains everything we've talked about today. The explainer reveals that Ronaldo operates on something called the fear engine. You see, society sells us this common feel-good myth that the greatest performers in the world are purely chasing the joy of winning, that they just love the game so much. But the psychological truth about Ronaldo is much darker, much more complex, and infinitely more powerful. His true underlying motivation isn't merely the thrill of victory. It is the absolute, paralyzing terror of losing. It is the deep-seated fear of being weak, of being helpless, and of fading back into the dark obscurity and poverty of his traumatic past. His fuel is fear.
Let's look at the final comparison. The average athlete, even a great one, plays for the joy of the game. They play for the applause of the crowd, the massive contracts, and the intoxicating thrill of holding up a trophy. But Cristiano Ronaldo? He plays to maintain his distance from failure. He takes all the brutal criticism, the childhood trauma, the poverty, and the millions of people who hate him, and instead of letting it hurt his feelings or break him down, he swallows it. He feeds all of that negativity directly into this dark, unstoppable engine of discipline.
He isn't just running toward a shiny, successful future, he is sprinting away from his past with everything he has, terrified that if he stops for even 1 second, it will catch him.
This analysis of Ronaldo's psychology leaves all of us with a profound, heavy, and almost uncomfortable realization about our own lives. We are so often completely paralyzed by our desire for comfort. We let the fear of failure stop us from even trying. But Ronaldo flipped that entire script. He didn't run from his fear, he weaponized it. He made his fear work for him. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative question. I want you to really think about this when you wake up tomorrow morning. If you finally stop being guided by your need for comfort, if you stopped hitting the snooze button on your life and instead started being driven by your deepest, darkest fears, what could you actually become? What is your true potential if you stopped hiding? Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this incredible source material today. Believe in yourself, take action right now, and never let your comfort destroy your potential. Make sure to subscribe, share this explainer with someone who needs to hear it today, and we'll see you in the next one.